aid to Vietnam by the U.S. has added up to $3 billion and 14,000 men who are called advisors, but who are in the thick of the battles against the Viet Cong Reds.
It began in the 1950s when the nation called them to Vietnam. Texans went by the thousand. They left the West Texas plains and the East Texas woods and the big cities and the small towns, many to take their first airplane ride, halfway around the world where they would be dropped off to fight a difficult and bloody war in Vietnam. They trudged through the jungles on combat patrols, piloted jet bombers and river patrol boats. Helicopter pilots inserted troops and brought out the wounded. They were dog handlers, artillerymen, and combat medics. Thousands of Texas men and women served alongside the soldiers as nurses, doctors, and Red Cross donut dollies. During the decade-long war, 500,000 Texans would be called upon to serve. In 1966, Chuy Hinojosa was just 19 when he enlisted in the Marines. And in 1968, Wayne Smith was among the thousands of Texans drafted into the Army and sent to Vietnam. The draft also took Robert Floyd. They were among thousands of Texans who would serve in Vietnam and return home to little welcome. Like many Vietnam veterans, Floyd, Hinojosa, and Smith set aside their war experience, but it was never forgotten. 45 years later, it would bring the men together for a new mission, this time at the capital of Texas.
Unlike previous wars, we never had any closure. Sure, the war was over, all the American troops were gone, but we weren't welcomed home, individually or in groups.
On the state capitol grounds, Texas has long honored generations of military veterans from every conflict, but Floyd, Hinojosa, and Smith served in a controversial war that divided the nation and left its veterans unrecognized. It wasn't the kind of war monuments are built for, so the three set out to change that.
House Concurrent Resolution 36, giving legislative authorization to a Vietnam War monument for the Capitol grounds.
There being 30 ayes, no nays, House Concurrent Resolution 36 is finally adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members. Simplify.
With the legislature's May 20, 2005 approval, the long journey to honor Texas Vietnam veterans had finally begun. This grassy spot on the northeast grounds is where the monument will eventually rise. It will take nearly 10 years to design and build, a period nearly as long as the Vietnam War itself.
I was a fighter pilot in Vietnam. I was shot down and captured and was a POW for not quite 7 years.
I was a radio man.
I was a dog handler.
My father is missing in action.
The monument will need to honor the diverse military experiences of Texans in every sector of the war.
Navy hospital corpsman.
The nurses did just about everything.
I have what I think is referred to as the 1,000-yard stare.
And I escaped Vietnam with my younger brother.
Their words, memories, and stories will be the foundation for the sculpture's design. And it will take money. For the next 5 years, members of the Texas Capitol Vietnam Veterans Monument Committee will traverse the state of Texas, raising funds and meeting Texans affected by the war. In August of 2012, artist Duke Sunt's design is selected, and now the long-awaited tribute begins to take shape here at the Deep in the Heart Art Foundry in Bastrop. The process of making the monument will take more than 2 years. When it is completed, it will weigh approximately 5,500 pounds and will stand 14 feet high at its tallest point.
is I'm going to make sure this wax pattern fits up with this cold cast figure here, this resin cast.
But for now, the monument is in the hands of foundry artist Clint Howard and sculptor Duke Sunt. Creating a scale model or a maquette is the first step. The collective experience of everyone who served in or was affected by the Vietnam War begins to take shape.
Building a monument on the biggest state capital in the United States of America, we knew that we had to get this perfect.
The Dawn Patrol centers the tribute around the ground combat troops. 5 young combatants positioned back to back are captured in a life or death moment. The radio man looks to the sky for help. The medic turns his attention to his wounded comrade. The standing rifleman and the kneeling sniper keep alert watch. Beneath them, a series of panels represents military support of the grunts on the ground.
The front of the piece, it'll have the Great Seal of Texas with 2 dragons. To me, they represent North and South Vietnam. One of the panels represents air to ground, Air Force mainly, could be Navy. Another panel represents the Brown Water Navy, the guys that were working the canals. The Blue Water Navy is one of the largest panels. That and the front panel are a little over 7 feet long. Another panel represents women in service. I'll have mostly nurses. There's a Huey, they're unloading wounded, a couple of donut dollies coming around the tent. There's a fire base, artillery, very much supporting these guys up on top. So I've got a air mobile panel, which is basically helicopters, infantry going out with a sniffer dog. I think they need to be represented. There'll be a lot of children that visit this monument, and as they come up to this, their eye level's going to be at these panels. So I want them to start asking questions. Well, what's this? What's that about? How come this is here? There were times when these figures would almost come to life, and it was very inspiring, but I felt like, since I didn't serve, well, maybe this is what I was meant to do, to try to help tell this story.
Oh God, we realize that on this sacred ground will be placed a monument that will stand as a long overdue thank you, to honor, to remember, and celebrate the great respect of our Vietnam veterans.
A groundbreaking ceremony is held at the Capitol site to honor Texans who died in the Vietnam War.
So today we will break the ground on the sacred soil where this monument will stand, where we hope that forever the memories of these men who gave the last measure of devotion will be recognized and remembered through history.
Let us now break ground for the Texas Capitol Vietnam Veterans Monument.
With 1 year until dedication, the monument is now in the talented hands of the artist at the foundry. This is where the concept scale model will be transformed into the 1.25 life-size bronze sculpture for the Capitol grounds.
And what we had to do is we had to take the small model and we had to scan it into our computer with a 3-dimensional laser scanner. And that in and of itself took quite a while, because breaking down this maquette into all the component pieces, we had, literally probably 100 pieces that needed to be scanned. And then once we had the scanned imagery, we had to go into the computer, clean everything up, and then resize it to the monumental size, all digitally.
But you can see the project coming to life in the foam. It's the modern version of, you think, Michelangelo cutting away at the stone, trying to release that piece. Well, here you see here, the piece is being released from the foam. And it's where you start to get a little bit of excitement and kind of see it come to life. It's still the very early stage, but then everything from here just moves further into production.
that the first time that I saw it in the milled foam stage where it was enlarged, I mean, I was like a young kid. My mouth just dropped open, and it was the first time that I realized that it's actually going to happen.
It's a big, big challenge to make sure that it lives up to the expectations of Texas citizens and Texans in general. We build pieces that are meant to last for thousands of years, and I want this to be significant for generations to come, not only in the next 50 years, but in the next 500 years. There's probably about 500 pounds of clay on the sculpture right now. So the styrofoam gives us the blueprint or the map, but it doesn't give us the final surface. It doesn't give us the fingerprint detail. It doesn't give us the expression in the face. All of that has to be done by hand in clay. Anytime you take on a project like this, you deal with a huge range of emotions because we're dealing with a committee that was created from veterans who were there, who had the stories.
But this one would be the lemon, except if you serrate it, then it's going to be the pineapple.
Okay, what is that one?
That's a smoke grenade.
Okay.
Careful attention will be paid to the accuracy of every element, big and small. Don Dorsey was a Marine sniper in Vietnam and one of the war's veterans who provides sculptor Clint Howard with critical details from the things they carried in combat to the things they wore. Real grenades, real radios, real helmets, and real boots. The involvement of veterans will help the artist attend to the monument's accuracy.
Well, this is definitely recognizable as a bazooka weapon. In its collapsed state, like we've got it here, I wasn't really sure what it was. Is there anything that we need to do to
Actually,
define
you
it?
have it upside down.
I've got it upside down.
And even the smallest details will have their attention.
So you've got an actual boot here from when you were in Vietnam?
This is my second pair that I wore in Vietnam.
And I noticed on the other boot that the shoestrings are broken and tied back together. Is that pretty common?
You couldn't get supplies when you needed it.
So it would be accurate for us to actually sculpt some of these shoes and show the broken shoestrings tied back together in a knot.
Right.
Oh, a very, very neat little detail we can add.
This is the part where it actually gets really fun. This is kind of the playing part of it. To me, it's another thing where it's almost long overdue for Vietnam veterans to be memorialized and to be respected in this kind of regards. And to have it here and to go on the Capitol grounds in Texas is pretty amazing.
We've started the mold making process, which the first step is to cut the piece apart into all the sections so we can make the molds on them. We literally use playing cards and create the separation lines on the piece where the mold is going to come apart and also where we're going to cast each individual section. So the head already has the card line established and it's got one coat of rubber on it. So you can see we've painted the liquid rubber on the surface and it's actually already set up. And so we'll continue painting and hand applying rubber to this. Once that's finished, then we'll do a plaster support case of it. And so the mold of the head will actually be two pieces that bolt together. And then we'll pour wax into that mold to get a wax copy of the head. Well, today represents the first pouring of the monument. We've been on the project now for 3 years. We're going to end up pouring about 250 sections. So it's nice to finally be at this point and get the first pieces of it in metal. And the next month or two will be full of pouring bronze. the metal into the shell about an hour ago, and now it's ready to break out. So we can actually break this out, and we're going to see the bronze casting inside of these two pieces. Right now, the eyes are full of investment. We'll have to blast them, but you can start to see the detail of the eyelids.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing it transition from clay to wax, and now we're finally seeing it in metal. Every step of the process, it looks different, you know?
It's really exciting.
This represents 9 years of continuous work to try to get this project finished. We came into the project 4 years ago, and in the process of making this piece, we have over 3,000 man-hours, and the piece was cast in over 800 pieces of stainless steel and bronze. Once we had those pieces, we had to weld everything back together, and then all of the weld lines had to be ground back to where you couldn't see the weld lines, duplicating the texture of the original sculpture. You know, not only was it the construction of the monument, the sculpting of the monument, but there's the design of the site, the construction of the site, and the engineering behind everything to make sure we were building something that would last for hundreds of years with zero maintenance.
It is less than a week before the dedication, and for the first time, committee members lay their eyes on the nearly completed monument.
It's incredible, man. Finally, Robert.
Hundreds of individual pieces of stainless steel and bronze have been assembled, and now, finally, the Texas Capitol Vietnam Veterans Monument is real.
What you have done here is incredible. Every Texas Vietnam veteran in this state owes you a deep, deep gratitude. You are talented beyond words. I've watched you for 3 years. You are incredible. And I thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The sculpture is ready for the move to its final location. Committee members gather in the pre-dawn light to witness its arrival.
This is the day we've been waiting for all these years. Since 2006 for me, we're going to lay this baby to rest on this pedestal right here.
Are you clear? How are you? Good to see you.
How you doing there, Jake? Good to see you.
The committee has overcome hundreds of obstacles. The legislation to approve a monument on the Capitol grounds, the challenges of fundraising, attention to the tiniest details of the design. Now the monument is just a few hundred feet from its resting place.
It is. It's exciting, and it's kind of breathtaking, and it's so hard to believe that it's here.
But now, a new obstacle presents itself.
So we have to figure out a more clever way to bring it through.
Uh-oh, you got another limb problem.
They've raised more than $2 million to build a monument, but damaging a 200-year-old oak tree is not in the budget.
Tirco would be out here having a heart attack. It's going to cost another $750.
In just a few days, the monument will officially belong to the people of Texas.
You know, it is a long time coming, and it is a great addition to the Capitol grounds.
Word begins to spread that the monument is almost home.
Yeah. Look at the guy's eyes.
How you doing, Richard?
Right.
Is this awesome? Is this
It
awesome?
is. It is. Bothers me. And to me, this symbolizes welcome home, Vietnam veterans. Welcome home.
The monument now sits on its pedestal, but the Combat Patrol has one final mission: to stand guard over the 3,417 Texans who are not alive to see this day.
Each of the members of the committee had a personal friend or relationship or knew of someone who had not come home. We were trying to decide how we could recognize the 3,417. And it was through two of our Marines who came up with the idea of making dog tags.
While the Combat Patrol and the panels of the monument tell the story of the Vietnam War, it will be these handmade dog tags that will remember each of the Texans who never made it home.
Donald J. Matoka, Second Lieutenant, United States Marine Corps, Smithville, Texas, killed April 5th, 1968.
Left. Left.
The monument tags will be front and center during a reading of the name ceremony.
Danny Richard Lake.
Specialist for Sergeant Oscar Garcia.
Staff Sergeant Glenn Lee, Waters, Marine Corps.
And the Texas Vietnam Heroes exhibit display will take a 3,500-mile Patriot Guard escorted tour of the state, where it will be greeted at every destination by those who come to remember.
More than 58,000 men and women were killed in the Vietnam War. 3,417 of them were from Texas. A dog tag with each of their names is part of the exhibit. Of the 3,417, 102 of them are listed as missing in action, and their tags are black. Vietnam is such a controversial war that, we weren't allowed to be proud for a long time, and people weren't allowed to grieve. And so now they have something tangible that represents their loss.
This is my son, James W. Smith.
And this was my little brother. And we sure miss him.
This is Ronald W. Forrester, Odessa, Texas, United States Marine Corps.
A very good friend of my cousin served with him, and really handsome, and so just neighborhood boy.
When you consider that each one of these is a life lost, a guy who had potential, his families, and now he's really a memory and a dog tag. And our job is to not forget him, and we have it. They're going to be part of us and a part of the monument. I mean, we're going to be putting these dog tags in a place where they're going to be secure forever.
Now with the monument in place, the men who have built it gather to entomb the hero tags.
As I stamped out each of your 3,417 dog tags, I tried to imagine your last moments in Vietnam. Please know that it matters to me and to all of the Monument Committee members that far from your homes and families, your lives were cut tragically short in a war few of us understood.
Our Heavenly Father, these 3,417 Texas Vietnam veterans have been with you in your kingdom all these many years. Now as we bring them to their monument, we ask that you continue to bless them, their families and friends. Bless this monument and the 5 brothers that will stand a vigil over our brothers. Order, arms.
Beneath the blue cloth lies Texas's larger-than-life tribute to a generation of veterans and their families who thought this day would never arrive. It has been 41 years to the day since the last American combat troops left Vietnam. It is none too soon for a 90-year-old mother who has come to honor her son who was killed in action, or for sisters who lost a brother.
This is my brother. He was a Lance Corporal, and he was killed at the age of 20.
A young woman who was just 1 year old when her daddy was shot down.
Welcome home. Thank y'all for being here. We appreciate it very much. It's going to be a beautiful day. How are you? Oh, yeah.
They've come from every corner to witness an historic event.
I'm Roy Martinez, live in Sugar Land, Texas.
Charles Crockett, Arlington, Texas.
Whitney, Texas.
Stinnett, Texas.
I'm from Houston, Texas.
I'm Alan Clark, Dallas, Texas. My wife, Linda.
El Paso, Texas.
Although it is the day to honor Vietnam veterans, service members and their families from other conflicts are here.
I'm volunteering today because I wanted to give back and to welcome home our Vietnam vets.
The Patriot Guard riders stand guard. And San Antonio's Edgewood Memorial High School is here. During the war, 54 of its young men, not much older than these students, were killed in Vietnam. Only one other community in the nation lost this many of its young. And future generations are here. They have come to say thank you.
I would like now to ask all of our Vietnam veterans to please stand, be recognized, thanked, and welcomed by the great state of Texas.
In less than an hour, these proud Texas veterans who spent a decade working towards this moment will proclaim this mission accomplished. In the moments before the unveiling, the words of those who lived the worst of this war lift the spirits of the audience.
And today's momentous unveiling of the Texas Vietnam Veterans Monument nearly brings me to tears for several reasons. You see, it's not until you're stripped from the comforts and abundance of America that you finally realize we do live in the land of the free because of the brave. Freedom has a taste to those who fight and almost die that the protected will never know. I salute you all. God bless you. God bless Texas and America.
The largest crowd ever assembled for a Capitol Monument dedication has arrived. Among them are the revered Texas combat journalist Joseph Galloway.
Our war at last honored right here at the heart of our home state.
The daughter of the war's president and commander-in-chief, and a hero awarded the Medal of Honor just days before this ceremony. These are the faces of a generation America called to war, and 40 years later they have come together at long last to see Texas welcome them home.
You were there. I saw you. I saw you humping through the elephant grass and the rice paddies, and I saw you flying those tin can helicopters and those screaming jets. and I saw you shooting the guns from those great ships, and I saw you up to your arms in blood in the field hospitals. You were there, and it was a war, and you were fighting it with every bit as much valor and courage and skill as Texans have shown in any war. But yours wasn't the kind of war that monuments are built for, until one man decided it was.
But it was just phenomenal. It was more than I think we ever thought it could be, and it went so perfectly.
In honor of all Texas Vietnam veterans, and in memory of our fallen, that is now unveiled at Texas Capitol Vietnam Veterans Monument. Welcome home.
You know, when it was unveiled and people started standing and clapping and cheering, it just meant so much. This was something that had never been done in this state, and they appreciated it. The veterans and their families were finally welcomed home by their state here on the Capitol grounds. And I think that was what was just so incredibly meaningful.
The Texas Capitol Vietnam Veterans Monument is, finally, a reality.
So you kids, I want you one day to bring your children here. Bring your grandchildren here, and you tell them about what happened today at the state capitol. You tell them about the men and women that we honored here today and how they left the state of Texas to answer their nation's call and how they served their country and did their duty. Your duty is to make sure it is never forgotten.
For those who have borne the price of the Vietnam War, it is a living monument, a place where their stories are forever etched in bronze.
This would mean a whole lot for those that have died and for those that are living. It has to mean something.
It's a godsend to Vietnam veterans. I think it'll be a healing monument where people can go over there and pour their hearts out and remember good memories, bad memories, and remember their time in hell.
What a monument to these guys, and what a welcome home. It brings literally tears to my eyes.
What a tribute, what a neat tribute. Any other state have this, I wonder, you know? Texas did a great job. Wow.
I think it's beautiful. Long time getting here.
Soldiers don't start wars. Soldiers go and die in them. And if there's one debt that America owes to my generation, it's the recognition that all we did, regular or draftee, was what the country had asked us to do.
Hundreds and thousands of Texans went to Vietnam to fight, and sometimes die in a difficult war. We cannot fully compensate them for their service, nor the families for their sacrifice. but we can hope that this monument is a good down payment. In the time that Robert Floyd conceived the idea of the monument and joined with 2 legislators and a committee of volunteers to build it, 2 grandsons had been born and raised to know that their grandfather proudly served during the Vietnam War.
We served in a war during a time where there was great division in this country, but we served honorably and courageously to the best of our ability. This monument is a welcome home that we never received when we came back from Vietnam. This monument says to us, we welcome you back, we are proud of you, and that you will not be forgotten.